Hey everybody, welcome to Leon's Chainsaw Parts and Repair. Midweek video here, who knows when I'll post it. Do an unboxing, if I can figure out how to get into this thing. There is a gentleman up in Canada who's been collecting saws for who knows how long. I know I've won some bids against him, I've lost some. He's had quite a collection. He's been liquidating a fair amount of it. And this saw is one that came out of that. God, must be 13 pounds of tape on here. I'm afraid I'm going to have a mess of cardboard styrofoam when this is all said and done. Anyway, this saw is an older, oh yeah, I'm going to have a mess. An older 100cc that I didn't have in my collection. And it's not going to be visually all that impressive. That's not what it's always all about. Tomorrow's trash day. Send that right out. Alright, so it needs a bunch of styrofoam blown off of it, but it made it from Canada without any apparent damage. Okay. Yeah. This lower handle is complete. This has got some serious wear. And I'm going to assume that's from riding around in the back of a truck. Wouldn't be chain rash on that side. Pretty good compression. See if the compression release is working. Ooh, that doesn't feel good. I don't think it is. If it is, it won't hold open. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not. Have to look into that. Alright, it does have the original muffler guard with the downdraft muffler. That's what I was expecting. I guess those screws just rattled out. Doesn't look like that's stripped, which is also a good thing. So what is it? Only thing left, 2100, right there. I don't think I can get the camera to focus on it, but I could be wrong. We'll hope that did. So that should mean that this has that Dyke style piston ring, big, almost a 1/4 inch wide right at the top, just a single ring. That should be what this has in it. So I'll have to check that out. At some point I will have the muffler off. My thought with this saw, it's in crummy enough visual shape. Okay, I see someone's done some stuff. There's Tygon. And I'll bet the carb has been off just by virtue of the fact the choke isn't hooked up. So there's a couple possibilities here. This thing I could put fuel in it and it would run. I have my doubts. Just, yeah, screw missing from the starter here. That bucking spike, I don't know, it's like something that someone started very briefly and then just said to heck with. And you need to get an air filter in here. Throttle rod grommet is completely gone. There's not even any residue left from it. But all the hard to find stuff is here. Even though that handlebar is damaged, whatever, it'll work. It's not in that bad a shape. This cylinder cover is there. And all the pieces for that decomp they're there. This, linkage here. So whether the valve was just frozen up, that I don't know. Get this off without damaging anything. There we go. I had one of these that one time I was working on, and the spark plug boot was worn through and it would run fine. I'd put everything back together with that cover and no spark. So this is crusty, musty. You can see that. She's definitely got a good accumulation of K-wrap in here. A new enough champion plug. I want to see if she has spark. If she does, yeah, someone's been in here. That's very new. It's also a CJ8. No, take that back. It's just a bad printing on the 6. So that's exactly what I would expect to see in there. A little bit of damage right where I hung the. That actually sucks. That actually sucks a lot. That's too bad. The air filter won't seal because of that hole right there. Out of everything, that would probably be the biggest no-no. Because if I try to replace the throttle handle, I'll have to get the right match and then peel this tag off. That kind of blows. Damaged over here too. I'm going to guess that this thing rolled around somewhere without the air filter cover on it over the years. Well, let's check for spark anyhow. Oh yeah. That starter's dry. Very dry. But she has spark. Pretty healthy looking spark at that. So this will be a project. I think I started to talk about what I was going to do with it, and I got sidetracked somewhere along the way. We have at work some cedar that we've had to cut due to bug kill. And while I cannot justify all the junk being owned by the company, I've wanted to finish. I've got the Granberg mill for attachment for the saw itself. I've never bothered to buy the rails because I just haven't gotten around to it, but I think I'm going to, and that's kind of my thought is I was thinking of using this when I get it running to mill some of that cedar for some projects we have there. Just make it a lunchtime gig and have a little fun with it. So we'll see. Anyway, 2100, that fills a slot in my collection that I didn't have filled, and this will be some work. And eventually, cosmetically, this almost, yeah, I'd love to repaint it someday. Sure don't have the time right now. So as I get into some repairs on this, I may do some videos out of all the series. These big ones are probably ones I've worked on the least on camera. So if I find I'm getting into some good stuff, we'll get the camera rolling and yeah, we'll document it. But anyway, 2100, more to come, but I'm glad to have it here safely. Alright, we're going to start getting into this 2100. It's not going to be quick and simple. I don't know why I ever think it would be, but I, fantasize, I suppose. Some of them are. Let's be fair. Some are. This one won't be. I lubed the starter up and then wanted to check the behind the muffler, and when I found stuff, I thought, alright, I'm going to stop and we're going to do videos. Because there's just not too many videos on these things. Or this style of saw. So, let's go through some stuff real quick before we get too far into this. That's a slightly better view. So with the cylinder cover, you've got these two screws. They're supposed to mate up to the muffler cover. There's supposed to be two screws in here and one right there. Well, those two are missing, and these are already loose, but that's something you got to make sure of, is to loosen these up enough that this housing can freely slide off, or if you're trying to take this off, you can break this really easily. That's what I'm getting at. So we'll take this muffler cover off. Again, see, it's going to come right off, but if these screws were still attached and you start reefing on it, you can snap that off real easily. Alright, so the muffler on these things has a set of studs and these big funky nuts. Okay, and these retainers that are supposed to be bent up. Now, I've already had this off, so this is going to go a little bit easier, obviously, than probably should. And I will try to keep my arm out of the viewfinder as much as possible here. So then the cover comes off. Again, you'll probably have to pry that off a little bit. This one's been pried on plenty of times. It's got some dents that I'll probably have to pound out for a good fit. So I got this far last time and went, oh, there's a stud missing. Why? I still don't know 100% why, but I have some theories. Spark arrestor's here, which is actually makes me happy because I will run that. A spark arrestor. Baffle is here and in decent shape. That made me happy. But I got this far, and I'll see if I can do this without changing the camera angle too much. There we go. You should be able to see the piston rings. And the fact that we're talking about rings and seeing thin rings means that this is not original to this saw. There was a thick ring option shown in the IPL, but most of these were produced with that single Dykes ring that would have been at the top of the piston, a real wide band, and that's not here. So the other thing that led me into here is the decompression. It's just not working. There's nothing happening there. And I decided it'd be easiest to go ahead and take the muffler off. Now again, I've got these studs already loose. That's why they're unthreading nicely. There's no boss on there for putting a wrench. So if you got one that's super tight, the old vice grips are probably your best option. Not on the threads, of course. I want to be very clear about that. That's a very bad idea. So we'll get this off of here again. Again, none of these are stripped, so that's a good thing. But then you get in here, and let me zoom you guys in so you can see what I'm seeing. Alright. That's the spring that's supposed to be tensioning that valve, and it's way the hell over here. Well, that ain't doing shit. Why is it over there? I don't know. How long has it been there? A long time. It's got a lot of grease on it. This was actually run this way, and I can't tell you why. What I can tell you is that piece of grease got right down there, and I don't want that in my engine. Dead blame it. So as I'm sitting here dinking with this, that decomp valve is not moving. It's not attempting to come up. It's not doing shat. So it apparently is seized in there. I have not personally come across this before. How are we going to deal with it? I don't know. But what I do know is with the throttle handle in place, I can't do anything. I can't get to that. So, I'm going to take the throttle handle off. I need a 3/8 for that. Which means the carburetor's got to come off. Which means a lot of stuff has to come off. So we're going to go ahead and pull this throttle handle while we're or bottom plate while we're under here, rather than fighting it. Come on, baby. Give me a good opportunity to clean all the grease and shat off of these screws. And off of, I mean, if we get into this as deeply as I think we're going to, all of this stuff's going to get a nice bath, and which means half the paint that's left is going to go away. Alright. Get this thing back upright. Which then makes it harder for you guys to see. Okay. And we know it doesn't have an air filter currently. So we'll get the fuel hose loose. That is Tygon. See, that was another clue that someone had worked on this, been in here at some point. That's had fuel through it. That's stiff enough. It isn't a lot, but it's had some ethanol containing fuel through it. Okay, on this style, the choke is already disconnected, so it's easiest. So you just pop it loose at the intake elbow here. And because this is one of the big boy saws, we also need to unscrew this support plate that's at the back of the carburetor. I'm going to try and do it this way. See if I've got good enough access to this screw past the throttle rod without damaging anything, and I think I do. These weren't very tight, by the way. They'd have rattled out pretty quickly when the saw was running. Okay. Now these gaskets to this pyramid reed setup, these are, was it 6 reeds? These aren't the most common thing ever, so don't pry these out if you don't need to. You know, if they're still intact, leave them. Save yourself the heartache of either having to build them or buy them at a high price. Now, the question I'm struggling with is, I'm going to risk leaving that in place. I'm going to try taking this throttle handle off with those. God, there's so much grease on here. I'm going to try leaving that reed cage in there. Is there anything else I'm forgetting? I don't think so. I think it's just these 4 up top here. I'm not going to get away with that. Nice thought. No chance. That gasket is not in good shape to be disturbed. But I don't want to break the cage. Oh, there we go. I've got my finger in here and I'm just pulling up. Now I'm going to drop reeds doing this, but look at this. Someone's done exactly what I did. And they used silicone on this outer cage, which, my opinion on RTV is if it wasn't there originally, it shouldn't be there when you reassemble it. Look at this, it's all the way down on the reed valve. It's interesting. I'll have to check the location of that. See if that's where that one's supposed to be. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One of them stuck down in there. Now these are steel, so if you drop one, you should be able to fish it out with a magnet. But I don't necessarily know that you want to drop one. So, now I've got that quandary to deal with. How to clean all that crap out. This was leaking crap by there too. So I can understand why it was put in there. Alright, I'm not going to disturb this any further. If I can get this thing out. Wow. God, this has that blue RTV all around it. Look how greasy this is. What a mess. What a dead blamed mess. Okay. So I was assuming that this had been apart more recently than maybe it has. Wow. That valve appears to be completely seized. I don't see a bunch of rust or anything in here. That's good. That's smooth. But man, this has got to come apart and be cleaned. Look at these vibration grease bubbles back here. That's a grease bubble that sat there and spun until it couldn't spin anymore. As much as I wanted this to be a quick get it running, that's not going to be the case, I don't think. So that's the other part of getting that shield off. You see it's got that screw retained by a big retainer clip right there. So all this crap needs to be cleaned out. That's hardened. Not as hard as some of it that I've come across, but that's baked in there. That's had a few years to set up. Oh yeah. Yep, there's some scraping there. I know it has spark, so we tested that on the unboxing video. You guys seen how easy this thing's coming apart though? This is not a complicated layout. It hasn't taken us any time at all to get this thing largely apart. I make a big mess all over my workbench. Yeah, we got a pretty good collection of grease and crap here too. That coil is just coated in shad. But it'll clean up. Alright, now, did I screw myself? No, I think I can get that handle off. We're going to go for the handle next. Get it out of the way. Because I'm just going to commit to this being a bigger project. And if I tear it all apart now, then I have to clean everything. Because my conscience won't let me put it back together. All crustified. Okay, Now, just like on a 1050, you've got your 2 tank screws here and the 2 from the front. And these aren't all greased up. It's not as bad. Come on, baby. There we go. We'll just see what we're dealing with here. Yeah, this has been off for certain. Okay. I don't think that's an original paper gasket. If I had to take a wild guess, somebody put a new gasket on this tank. And I bet you it doesn't hold fuel for hooey. I'm going to test my theory. Yeah, see, that screw comes out awful easy. Okay. That's yes, you can see the Felpro logo. Well, you guys can't. I can. That piece of paper that's sticking down. I don't know if it's focusing or not, but I can see it. That's a piece of Felpro paper. So odds are pretty good that this is... I think a self-tapping screw belongs right there. I don't. God damn it. Oh yeah, finding that kind of stuff irritates me. Irritates me right good. Okay. The good news is, other than normal wear, I don't see anything broken in here. I have a sneaking suspicion that flywheel is not going to want to come off. But we're going to need it to in order to clean this engine properly. So let's see how much of a nuisance it's going to be. Come on. And no, that wasn't as tight as I would expect it to be either. This thing doesn't take a lot of effort coming off. Okay, so that I kind of expected. Come on. There she goes. And no damage to the threads. I wasn't hitting it that hard. Didn't expect any trouble, but notice that this does not have an ignition system like the 1050. These bigger saws, they went to a standard breaker box, condenser, and coil on the outside, as opposed to that Phelon system on the other side. And this is a Weco Presto light. So those systems are not interchangeable. Could you change it all out? And a flywheel? Maybe. I've never tried it. And I'm not going to this time, because I have no reason to. My guess would be yes. I think all the castings are right there for it. I think you could. Because these kind of ignition parts are not all that terribly common. I'm going to say no one's been into this, though, for quite some time, because that washer's still there. And it doesn't look like it's been disturbed. But at least this way I can get all this grease and crap and shat out of here. And then open it up and dry out the points. Well, that's an interesting touch. The condenser retainer actually helps retain the points cover. Not just the spring clip there. That is interesting. Wow. She's clean in there. That looks nice. I'm just going to put this right back on. And like I say, I'll have to open it up to clean it out after I get done hosing everything here. But that gives me hope that that's not going to be too much of a mess in there. That's good. So I guess we ought to look at what I originally wanted to look at, which is why the hell isn't that decomp working, and see if there's anything we're going to be able to do about that without getting extreme. I've never heard of one of these seizing up before from sitting, or from getting hot, or, well, for any reason for that freaking matter. I don't know if penetrating oil is going to do a damn dirty thing for that. I do not want to bend this. So let's just see what we might have. That's going to be too big. Go from there. There's a reason that this was never hooked up. And when I say it was never hooked up, I mean the spring tension was never put back on it. That spring ought to be over here, like that, and it was never hooked back up. So somebody knew they didn't have a reason to. And that makes me real suspicious as to what was done when this thing was put in. It actually makes me worry quite a bit. I don't know. This may be permanently inoperative, and I'm not going to destroy a cylinder over that. So, like I said, we'll come back when I know a little bit more. Okay, so I've done a lot of cleaning. Still not perfect, and I really came close to tearing this thing all the way down in order to do a paint job. This freaking close, but I'm not going to do it. I just want to get it running right now. I don't need more stuff to do. So let's go through. I mean, this is all cleaner. I was able to get eventually this pin out, but not without damage. So this, we'll talk about this in a minute, but you see how this top turns and swivels? It's because there's a crimped end up here, and this is all one piece down into there. It's got to be able to move. Well, when I was getting this one out, it tore out. So obviously I've pounded it back in, but there's no swivel left to it. So I'm not comfortable with that. Now, wouldn't you know, I used to have these in stock. Wouldn't you know, I don't anymore. Didn't save any. None on eBay. So what I'm going to use is a XL 123 version. There's the difference. That height right there. I think it'll work. Seat's the same. Hopefully that's focusing. I hope it is. I'm using it. I know. We'll just show you. Don't need the spring on here just yet. I'll put it on. Oh shit. Come on, baby. Don't slip. Ah. Spring's sitting too high. I know that. But I think that lever is going to be able to lift it out just enough to operate. I think. I'm going to try it. You know, what choice do I have? Because with this thing not spinning anymore, this is just too damaged. So, why? Why did it come out so hard? Well, I've cleaned the base. I've gotten all the carbon off of it, but I think it was leaking. And as dumb as this is going to sound, somebody tried to Loctite that in place to stop the leak. No, I wasn't real happy when I realized what it was. I had to torch this carefully. I mean, very carefully. So not to lose the tension on the spring, light the engine on fire. You know, I had to torch it. I had to heat it up in order to get this out. I had to heat it 3 different times. And I could get it to lift, and then on that last one, it tore out. I mean, in hindsight, if I had realized how it was built, could I have avoided that? Maybe. But I'd already torched on this about as much as I felt comfortable torching on it. So I'm going to go with a shrug, and yep, I wish it hadn't happened. Now that you guys know how it's made, hopefully, if you're working on one of these, you'll be able to avoid that scenario. So decomp pin, maybe not dealt with right, but dealt with for now. We'll phrase it that way. It's dealt with for now. The throttle handle. All of this broken out right there. This edge is chipped over here. It's chipped back into here. Could have done something with this. Turned out I didn't need to. And there's actually still a couple of these on eBay. But of all things, I had one in stock. New old stock. Got some chips. Pretty sure this is one of those parts that I bought from the gentleman over in Great Britain. Even came with the... I'm living dangerous doing that. Came with the carburetor support bracket and screws. And some Homelite instructions. One pump rod bushing is packed loose so the oil pump rod can be easily installed. Nuh-uh. It's right there. Cute. That's all it is. Talking about that and the anti-vibe carburetor mount kit. So that's how I'm going to deal with that whole issue. I'm just going to transfer the data plate over and transfer all that other stuff over to here. So that deals with that problem, which I was going to start dealing with before I flipped on the camera, and I thought, no, I'll go through some of this stuff first. What else do I want to talk about? So there is a gasket above and below the insulator block here, and I see that even after a couple of goes, I'm still finding freaking silicone in here. God dang it, I hate silicone. I hate silicone where it doesn't belong. So there's a gasket above, gasket below, the spacer block. That's the phenolic block, that kind of fibrous material. And then there's this filler block that goes in here. Now, I looked on the IPL just to make sure that I was doing this right. And there are 2 holes in there. I don't know what those are for, but those go front to back. And it just sits in there. And then that taper, it's got the tapered side and then the flat side. You want the flat side down, because then that tapered side, your reed valve will fit right down into. It creates a that's how it fits, right there. And eventually I think it gets tight just like that. Just like that. So those vent holes, now that I'm looking at it, line up with the carburetor pulse hole. You can see all the way through it. I know you guys can. So hopefully I didn't screw it. There we go. So that's why that's designed that way. And these edges here are what capture the edges of the reed cage. The reeds, there are 6. 5 are the same. 1 has the split here. And there's a spot on the reed cage. It's real obvious that that goes. Real obvious. And it's right there at the carburetor pulse. So that all has to be assembled in the right order. Now I got lucky and I was able to razor this whole gasket and reed retainer assembly off of the old throttle handle without doing any damage to it. So I will be able to reuse it. Amazingly. I don't know how I got that lucky. I don't normally. I did replace the 5 flat reed valves. They had a lot of wear on them. I actually shouldn't have thrown all of them away. I should have showed you guys why I didn't like them. I want to find one that's really... There we go. That's probably the worst. So you can flip reeds when they're worn, and I could have, had I not had new ones, I would have flipped this. But look at how pronounced the wear is. There, I think that got the light just right. You can see that outer ring is dull, and the inner is nice and shiny. This is a lot like a rod bearing in a small block Chevy or any engine. Dull ain't good, okay? I can actually catch the screwdriver. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. I'm catching the screwdriver there. That is so worn that it has worn the stainless steel reed down, okay? That's rough. And there's actually, no, I guess that was just a piece of junk from my screwdriver. I was going to say there was a chip on it. But this has worn away a percentage of the material here. I would say at least 25%, maybe more, all right? And that's rough. That's dirt and shit. That's stuff that doesn't belong in there. Leaking by the air filter because of breaks like this. So, that's not cool. See a piece of silicone right on top of the connecting rod there. I'll snag that before I forget. So that dirt and debris leaking past and doing damage on the rod isn't cool for obvious, there it goes, obvious reasons. And that also may explain some scratches on the piston. Those could be carbon scratches on either side, up and top and bottom of the muffler port there. They haven't damaged the ring landings, and I don't think they're going to. And it's got great compression, so I'm not concerned about it necessarily, but having your engine ingest junk from the outside is never good. It leads to that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm headed with this. I'm going to take some time, finish cleaning. Well, I haven't cleaned any of this because I'm not going to reuse the big throttle handle, but I need to clean all the components, get them transferred over to the new one, and then I think I'll come back at that point when we're ready to start assembling. This stuff is just, it's pretty basic, you know. Excuse me. You've got to get your oil pump rod out, and that is a little bit of a challenge just because of the debris on it. I'll have to get all that cleaned up, but you slip that nylon stop out, and then this will pull back enough to release, and you can get it all out. Grommets, you just transfer them. There is the grommet and choke rod, fast idle pin, the throttle trigger, and again, all you're going to do is drive that. Which one am I going to drive? Can't remember. I've done this enough times I should remember. Can't remember if you want to drive from this side or from this side, but I'll find out. There's a groove in the pin that holds the spring, and that's why I'm thinking it'll release and I can just drive it all the way through, I think. But yeah, you got your ignition switch, on-off switch that needs to get changed over. You need to get all the grease and crap off of this block that, you know, our decomp lever. And that's going to be another trick, is making sure that with that sitting, what is that, 3/16 of an inch higher, make sure this damn rod will actually reach. If it won't, I may have to get creative and make one, which doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. So I'm going to hope that it reaches well enough. And you can be damn certain I'll be keeping an eye on eBay for the proper pin. So anyway, I'll get some of this stuff transferred over, quit jabbering, and we'll come back when we're ready to do some more assembly. Okay, so I didn't turn the camera on as quickly as I could have. That's okay. What I did was get this throttle handle mounted. That's not a big deal. You guys saw the screws that came out as it was being installed. What I needed to do was fuss around with modifying this decomp lever to make it work. And in order to do that, I needed that in place. And you guys didn't need to see the 4 or 5 variations of tweaking that thing. Didn't add any value, because hopefully you guys aren't going to be faced with that same little bit of jazz. But you aim this. Poop. Figures. Okay. Now it's dark there. I'll get my head out of the shadows. Watch the movement. Moving as it should. So if I set this cover in place where it's going to be without ripping anything apart, and that is the real trick here. Come on, baby. There we go. So that's where the cover is going to sit, essentially. So I could bend this a little bit more so that it's all the way down there. But when it comes out into the detent, it is open. And right there, it is not. So I think I'm going to call that good. And every time I do this, I'm afraid I'm going to snap that little lever, or that little plate. Oh, you know, there's still some adjustment on this. See that? There's still a little adjustment left. So I might be able to make that work even better than I thought. So that's good. Everything transferred over pretty well. Manual oiler's back working. I don't have the throttle trigger installed. My goodness. So that spring, you do drive the pin this way and just get the spring off of there. And I drove it out and I had my hand on the trigger like this, and all of a sudden it was gone. I don't know where in the bloody heck it shot to. I've looked all across this bench. I ran a magnet across the floor within, say, 5 feet of where I'm working here. I cannot find that dirty little son of a gun. So, that's going to slow me down because I don't have that in stock either. I'm going to have to order that online, that throttle return spring that's on the trigger here. So that really sucks. I'm not happy about that. But that's okay. In a weird way, it'll force me to do some things that I was, might have gotten excited about running the saw and not having done. Like deal with that gas tank. I am gonna split that apart, get that paper gasket out of there, do a moto seal gasket, and then red coat the inside of this tank. That way I never, ever am gonna have problems with it. And I need to clean all the junk. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that can really actually break things. There's a layer of grease, hardened grease, on the mounting bosses here. I mean, this poor saw, I don't know if it was repeatedly overflowed with oil as it was being filled, or if that tank just leaked and the flywheel as it was running was just blowing fuel in here, and then it cut sappy wood that just made a mess. I don't know. Weird sort of way, it doesn't matter, because I'm going to fix all that stuff now. So those are the next steps. Deal with that tank, wait for throttle return spring to come in. I can go through that carburetor, even though I think somebody already did. I'll go through it again. Guess I can set our reed valve in place now so that no crap gets down in the engine. So that's all looking really good. I actually am really happy with where the thing is at for only having had it a couple days. I'm waiting for the other muffler stud to come in and the nut that goes with it. Can't remember if I was actually able to find one of those. I gotta go through the orders again. I was having all kinds of fun the other night just trying to find this, that, something else. So anyway, I'm gonna cut it short. I think dinner is here. I'm hungry. So when some parts come in, we'll continue. Okay, let's see what we can get done here. I decided to forego the red coat in the fuel tank and just do moto seal since I'm not painting this right now. If I ever do get around to painting it, cool. At that point I'll red coat it. The whole point of that would be to prevent damage to the paint. If any fuel did seep and get to that edge, it'll start lifting paint and clear pretty quickly. But again, I'm not going to worry about that right now because, yeah, just don't have the time. And I know Moto Seal will seal the tank up. So that's what I've done. Got this apart, and it was just a hand-cut paper gasket. Nothing wrong with that. It's Felpro paper. Again, nothing wrong with that other than it will leak. This is not enough. If this had been cut and then sealed with... Where's my gasket sealer? No, really. Where the hell... Yeah, I'm not laughing now. Where the hell's my gasket sealer? Well, that makes for an effective video. I don't know where I put it. Here's in front of my eyeballs. There we go. This stuff. Permatex high-tact spray a gasket sealant. Now, this isn't for... It says holds and seals, cuts gaskets. I agree it seals. Holding, I've had less luck with that. But on those leaky HDC fuel pump circuit gaskets, this stuff works pretty damn good. on this gasket would work pretty good. Now this has already had fuel and oil in it, so I'm just not going there. But that's your other option. If you buy one of the paper gaskets from eBay, just seal it with some of this stuff first, and you'll probably be good to go forever. I'm not a big fan of RTV or MotoSeal and the gasket setup. Maybe it works for some of you guys. I'm not a fan of it. Not what I do. So, yeah. So got that. There's a fresh hose in there. That fitting unscrews really easily when you put a 5/16 deep socket on it. Make sure that it sits down all the way. My impact socket only goes down about halfway. That's a good way to round it off. 6-point deep all the way. If it's a real nasty one, try tightening it a little bit and then rattling it loose. I've yet to strip one doing this. Doesn't mean I won't, but I haven't yet. Fresh duckbill in the cap. And I even put a nice fresh element on the fuel filter, because that was what was in there. That is all the old hose that congealed over it. That's not going to flow fuel real well. So, where are we at? I got crap everywhere. But it's actually not that much to get this thing reassembled. These are the tank screws. So we'll clean those up real quick. One of these is slightly different size. So I just want to look through the mess here real quick and make sure there's not another pile of screws that I'm missing. Because there are. What the hell did I do with the starter screws? And that's what I'm afraid of. Although all those bosses are the same size, they should have all been the same size. Where would I have put them? Where indeed would I have put them? Alright. When all else fails, you run with it. This fuel hose was okay. We'll slip it back on. Tank will just sit right in place there. Don't want that tight just yet. Ah, yeah. That socket is just worn enough that it won't hold one of these at a 90-degree angle. There we go. Okay. Again, I know I've harped on this in other videos of this style chassis, but man, especially if your tank's not leaking, to replace that hose, don't take the front cover off. Don't waste your time. Don't create that headache for yourself. Those 4 screws and you can have this tank off. Just right off of the saw. Super simple to work with. Super simple. There we go. That would be the other pile of screws that I was looking for. And there's still one that's too long in there. Oh boy. That is, I guess, par for the course. I don't need one that looks beautiful. Not for this saw. Here we go. Okay. Squirrel moment. Alright. We can wait. I want to put the starter on so I can get the cylinder cover on and we can really test this decomp valve. Yeah, I think that's what I want to do. I think that'll be the most effective. There we go. So I suppose, yeah, we'll get this on, and then we'll drop a spark plug back in. Come on. There she goes. Wow. That's what I was afraid of. Damn. Perhaps, just perhaps, that's why one of those screws was longer. Just see. Yeah. Okay. Back in the old days, on saws I wasn't familiar with, and I'd still do it, I'd make a baggie of parts with a label. If there was something that I wasn't quite sure of. And in this case, that might not have been a bad idea. Wait. This is an ugly casting down here. I don't necessarily want to break it. What is going on? It's got a bunch of grease and shat in it. And it corroded to beat hell. Okay. Something that's a little stiff like that using the rattle gun can result in a broken screw pretty quick. Okay. And look at that. Blew my reed valve out. Just for funds, let's make sure that our spark plug still says we have spark. And I'll try and do it without zapping myself. That is a beautiful sight. Okay, let's drop that in place. I did load this up with some WD-40 just in case any moisture had gotten in there when I was cleaning it out. And a little pre-lube never hurts. It'll burn off pretty quick. Alright. I'm wondering how badly I'm going to screw myself by not having the throttle trigger assembly installed. How much of a pain is that going to be? Ah, who cares? We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Rumor has it that spring will be in the mail today. And if my estimation is correct, the mail ought to be here any freaking minute now. Whoa, the hell was that? Okay. I don't want to break this cover. If you've ever tried to look for one, you know that they're made of at least one part unobtainium. Alright. Yeah, you guys can see that. So that's not quite down. Is that really making a difference? Not a hell of a lot. Not a hell of a lot at all. Do I dare bend that to try and hold it? Yeah. It's definitely lifting that pin. You know, one thing I hadn't considered, the relief, the ridge where it would normally relief in there may be completely full of that damn Loctite. Well, I guess it's a good thing I still got Armstrong power, because that is going to be a good pull. Alright, we're going to bolt the carburetor in because I just can't seem to resist doing what I just did and popping that out. You know, much as I like looking like a dumbass. There we go. Oh, cute. There we go. New throttle rod boot didn't want to let me in. So those should be that. Okay. Now, before I forget, at some point, the air filter that was in here, the grommet rotted out of it. And that's what's left of it. So when I go to put a new one in, I don't want it to be trying to seal to that old trash. Okay. We'll put our 2 support screws back in if I can do that without too much drama here. Damn it. You knucklehead. Tell you, it is a shame that got this beautiful new old stock throttle handle with all this other worn out paint, but hey, such is life. Okie dokie. We are limited with what we can do. No, we're not that limited. I don't know why I would say that. We can assemble the muffler with the 3. I don't have a 4th stud yet. It is currently on its way. I'm going to test my theory here. But that's as tight as I need to make it. And that the Alright. I will, of course, have to take this all back apart when the 4th stud comes. It's a little tiny bit distorted. Just like everything on this muffler, just a little tiny bit. Not bad. I'm actually not being critical. I'm not being a smart aleck about it. There's really not a huge amount. That spark arrestor screen is probably the biggest tweaked up mess. But even it fits in. Yeah. Not too terrible. And then this is a downdraft muffler style. This was considered the quiet muffler for these things, which I'm pretty sure quiet is a relative term. This was a kit that was offered, and it even shows up, of all things, in an early Super 1050 IPL as an option. God, this just is not. There is no good cam. Now that is better. This saw sits pretty tall in the vise here. That'll suffice for now. Where? I guess the muffler shield is still out here. There we go. Be damned, she's starting to look like a saw. That should be shorter than that. So for that upper one, I think we'll use yeah. Start that. See about these things. These were oh, no. How long? Wow. Huh. I'm going to have to look at an IPL on that, I think. If I got anything over here. Yeah, I didn't think so. Oh, that's interesting. Well, the proper screws ought to look familiar. Super XL starter housing screws. Pretty funny. Looking at this, I wondered if that might be what the APL called for, and what do you know? Oh yeah. There we go. Sweet. Okay. There's nothing to hold that at idle. But I'd kind of like to hear a little pop bang. I also think I hear UPS, which if I hear that, that means the oil change supplies for my wife's car are on board. Which is convenient that they would arrive on a rainy day. That's pretty cool. A little squirt of fuel doesn't go very far on one of these big old boys. Alright, well I really am running out of stuff I can do until the mail's delivered, until I get that throttle spring. I think about all that's left is putting the front handle back on and getting this off and throwing a... That sprocket's not worn out. I'm not going to replace that yet. And that's not seized up. So, yeah. Gosh, I guess we're just going to have to keep hurrying up and waiting. Which I'm not the greatest at. But soon enough. Next time we come back, it should be for a test run. Okay, we're about ready for a test run on this, but I thought we'd weigh it first, just for grins. Oop. I'm going to stay on without breaking. Oh crap. 31 pounds, 5.2 ounces, dressed with a 28-inch bar and chain. Well, it'll either make you tough or it'll kill you. One or the other. Alright. Let's see if things are going to run without any drama. Well, almost no drama. Well, I dare say it needs a little bit of tuning. I'll have to take it up to the firewood hill and actually do some cutting with it. That idle speed is awful low. But then with where the screw was set, I guess I can't say that I'm terribly surprised. Try that. In fact, we'll try that before I put that back on. I can live with that for now. I can dick with this on the bench all day long, and it won't achieve much. I need to tune it when I'm cutting. Good news is, she's oiling. Chain's nice and wet. That roller nose is greased up. Super stoked to have a 2100. Just plain 2100 in the collection.